Executive Summaries, May 2026 edition.
Water, sustainability and the future of apparel industry. As Bangladesh enters the heart of the monsoon season, rain once again reminds us of nature's generosity and also of our responsibility. Water is not merely a resource for life, it is the lifeblood of agriculture, industry, ecosystems and human civilization. Yet across the world, including in our own country, water pollution, wastage and unsustainable industrial practices continue to threaten this precious gift. For the apparel and textile industry, the conversation around water has become more urgent than ever. The global fashion industry is among the largest consumers of fresh water, and within the apparel value chain, denim manufacturing remains one of the most water-intensive segments. From cotton cultivation to dyeing, washing, finishing and chemical treatment, enormous quantities of water are used every single day. Excessive groundwater extractions, discharge of untreated effluents and inefficient production methods can create long-term environmental consequences if not addressed with sincerity and accountability. Bangladesh, as one of the world's leading garment exporting nations, now stands at an important crossroads. The future competitiveness of our industry will no longer depend solely on cost efficiency or production capacity. Sustainability, environmental compliance, responsible water management, and ethical manufacturing are rapidly becoming defining benchmarks for global buyers and consumers. Encouragingly, many Bangladeshi factories are already leading positive transformation. Investments in effluent treatment plants, ETPs, water recycling technologies, low liquor dyeing machines, laser and ozone finishing in denim, rainwater harvesting systems, and green factory certification are gradually reshaping the industry's environmental footprint. These efforts deserve recognition and wider replication. However, sustainability cannot remain limited to a few showcase factories. Water conservation must become an industry-wide culture. Every drop saved in washing, dyeing, finishing, and daily factory operations contributes toward protecting our rivers, groundwaters, and future generations. Equally important is ensuring that industrial waste and chemical discharge do not pollute the waterways that millions of people depend upon. Compliance today is not only about meeting audit requirements, it is about building resilience, reputation, and responsibility. International markets increasingly expect traceability, environmental stewardship, and measurable sustainability commitments. Factories that embrace water-efficient technologies and transparent environmental practice will ultimately be better positioned in the evolving global supply chain. At this critical moment, collaboration is essential. Manufacturers, brands, policymakers, technology providers, workers, and consumers must collectively promote sustainable water uses and stronger environmental governance. The industry must move beyond reactive compliance toward proactive stewardship. This rainy season should therefore inspire reflection. While nature replenishes our rivers and reservoirs, we must ask ourselves whether we are protecting the invaluable resource with the seriousness it deserves. I would like to conclude my note by wishing our readers and well-wishers for the second largest Muslim festival, Eid al-Adha, Eid Mubarak. Let's learn from tradition and religion. Wastage is a great sin and water is life. No way we can overlook the importance of water conservation. The future of apparel industry will not be defined only by how much we produce or consume, but by how responsible we manufacture, considering the future generations' prosperity and success.
Impact of Iran war, a new stress test for Bangladesh RMG industry. The Iran conflict and wider Middle East instability are creating new pressure on Bangladesh's garment industry, exposing deep structural vulnerabilities in the sector. Bangladesh's RMG industry depends heavily on imported energy, raw materials, logistics, and global demand, all of which are now under strain. Rising oil prices linked to the Strait of Hormuz disruption are increasing costs across electricity, transport, dyeing, and export operations. The DCCI has warned that this could hurt export competitiveness. Freight markets are also under pressure, with shipping rerouted, insurance costs rising, transit times lengthening, and air freight use increasing. These delays can lead to cancelled orders and lost buyers in fast fashion supply chains. At the same time, raw material prices, including cotton, yarn, polyester, and dyes, have increased by around 10 to 15% since the escalation. However, buyers are reluctant to raise FOB prices, squeezing factory margins farther. Beyond costs, higher global fuel prices are fueling inflation in Western markets, which may weaken consumer demand. With over 80% of Bangladesh's export earnings coming from garments, this creates a major risk for the sector. But the impact goes beyond short-term price pressure. The crisis highlights deeper weaknesses such as energy import dependence, low value addition, and fragile supply chains. It also signals a shift in global sourcing priorities, where buyers now value political stability, resilience, and logistics security alongside cost. Similar pressures are already visible in other textile hubs like India, showing this is a global shift in apparel trade. The Iran crisis is a warning that Bangladesh's garment industry must prepare for a more unstable global environment where survival depends on resilience, diversification, and structural change. Rain ready: how Bangladesh adapts fashion for the monsoon season. When the monsoon arrives in Bangladesh, it changes more than the weather. It transforms daily life, and fashion adapts right along with it. As rain, humidity, and waterlogged streets become part of everyday life, fashion shifts towards comfort and practicality. Retailers replace heavier fabrics with lightweight materials like cotton, linen, rayon, and georgette that are breathable and easier to dry. Women's wardrobes move toward flowing kurtis, cord sets, shorter kameez designs, and cropped trousers, while men increasingly choose lightweight shirts, polos, casual Punjabis, and moisture-friendly trousers. Darker colors, earthy tones, and patterned garments often become more popular because they're better suited to rainy conditions. Footwear also changes, with waterproof sandals, rubber-based shoes, and quick-dry sneakers replacing materials that struggle in wet weather. Accessories such as umbrellas, waterproof bags, and weather-resistant backpacks have become everyday essentials. But monsoon fashion today is about more than simply staying dry. The rainy season has become an important retail opportunity, with brands launching dedicated collections and digital campaigns as more consumers shop online during periods of heavy rainfall. At the same time, climate change and increasingly unpredictable weather patterns are making seasonal planning more challenging. Consumers are placing greater value on durable, easy-to-maintain clothing, while designers continue blending traditional Bangladeshi craftsmanship with lighter fabrics and modern tailoring. Sustainability is also becoming part of the conversation as shoppers seek versatile pieces that last beyond a single season. More than a seasonal trend, monsoon fashion reflects how Bangladesh adapts to one of its most defining seasons, balancing practicality, resilience, and personal style. Brand in focus: Uniqlo. Uniqlo has grown into a global fashion brand by doing the opposite of much of the industry. It does not chase trends, it builds consistency. Uniqlo, part of fast retailing, grew from a small Japanese family business led by Tadashi Yanai into a global retailer focused on casual basics. Its model is built on standardization, tight control of operations, and an integrated system linking design, sourcing, and retail. After early struggles in Western markets where products seemed too simple, the company leaned further into functionality over fashion cycles. This led to its lifewear concept, where clothing is designed as practical, durable, and suitable for everyday use rather than seasonal expression. Instead of constant reinvention, Uniqlo focuses on refining core products. Lines like Heat Tech and Allrism are developed as long-term platforms, supported by a neutral design, minimal branding, and selective collaborations such as J.W. Anderson. Flagship stores and integrated e-commerce strengthen its global reach. Operations remain central to its efficiency, with close supplier control, RFID tracking, automated warehouse, and limited product variation. However, rising logistics costs and US tariffs are putting pressure on margins, especially given its reliance on Asian sourcing. Even with sustainability initiatives, questions remain about the environmental impact of large-scale global retail. Uniqlo continues to expand by relying on stability and familiarity rather than fast-changing trends, positioning itself as a consistent alternative to traditional fashion cycles.
How finance keeps Bangladesh's garment industry moving. The sector plays a dominant role in the economy, with garments contributing over $39 billion out of roughly $48 billion in export earnings in FY 2024-25. Because of this scale, financial conditions quickly shape production across the industry. Bangladesh's garment industry is not driven by factories alone. Behind every shipment is a financial system that keeps production and exports running every day. Before production even begins, factories rely on trade finance to import raw materials and equipment. Letters of credit, especially the back-to-back LC system, connect export orders directly with import financing, meaning production starts only when financial support is in place. During operations, factories face constant pressure from delayed export payments, which means costs must be covered long before money arrives from buyers. To bridge this gap, they depend heavily on short-term bank financing. Rising lending rates, reaching around 14 to 15% in some cases, along with delays in opening LCs during dollar shortages, have added further strength. These financial delays often turn directly into production delays. The dollar situation also plays a key role. Since exports arrive in dollars while local expenses are in taka, banks manage the conversion, and any shortage quickly slows import and disrupts production schedules. Banks and Bangladesh Bank continue to support the sector while tightening oversight. At the same time, compliance and transparency have become just as important as pricing, especially as global buyers demand greater accountability. Export performance has also reflected pressure, with RMG exports reportedly declining by 2.82% during July to April of FY 2025-26 compared to the previous year. Finance is also shaping the sector's future through support for greener factories and more efficient production systems. Digital trade finance is gradually reducing delays and improving the speed of transactions. From imports to exports, finance sits at the center of Bangladesh's garment industry. It keeps factories running, enables global trade, and increasingly determines how the sector competes in a changing world. Pakistan's garment shift. Pakistan's garment industry is at a turning point. After years of relying on raw textile exports, it is gradually shifting toward finished apparel to strengthen its global position. This shift is visible in export trends. Knitwear reached $5.01 billion and ready-made garments $4.13 billion, both growing faster than traditional categories. Finished apparel also offers a higher value and stronger integration into global supply chains. Pakistan's garment sector is slowly moving beyond raw textiles toward finished apparel, but its long-term success will depend on consistency, reliability, and adapting to global expectations. Pakistan's textile industry was built around cotton, yarn, and unfinished fabric. While this supported export earnings, it limited growth in higher value products. Now, knitwear and ready-made garments are becoming more important as the industry moves toward value-added exports. Textiles and apparel still play a major role in the economy, contributing around 8.5% of GDP and about 55% of export earnings. Textile exports reached roughly $17.9 billion in FY 2024-25, but growth slowed to 1.25% in early FY 2025-26 recovery. However, the sector faces major challenges. Energy costs, expensive financing, and logistic delays continue to raise production pressure. Climate issues are also affecting cotton supply, with domestic output falling sharply and many spinning mills shutting down in FY 2024-25. Pakistan's industry structure gives it a mixed position. Large integrated textile groups manage production from yarn to garments, offering better control over quality and delivery, which is increasingly important for global buyers. At the same time, global buyers are demanding stronger compliance, sustainability, and transparency, while larger firms invest more in automation and smaller factories struggle to keep pace. How can Bangladeshi apparel manufacturers reduce supply chain uncertainties? Bangladeshi apparel manufacturers operate in global market shaped by constant uncertainty. Reducing that uncertainty depends on coordination across the supply chain, not just internal efficiency. Fashion demand changes quickly due to shifting trends and global economic conditions. Although Bangladeshi manufacturers sit in an upstream position, they are still affected when changes in consumer demand travel back through the supply chain. The most effective way to reduce this uncertainty is collaboration. Global buyers are closer to end consumers and can share timely market insights that help manufacturers understand demand changes and improve forecasting. Manufacturers can also manage uncertainty using 5 key supply chain levers: capacity, inventory, time, information, and price. Capacity decisions must align with long-term demand expectations since they require significant resources and planning. Inventory must be carefully balanced to avoid both overstocking and shortages. Time flexibility helps manufacturers adjust between efficiency and responsiveness depending on order urgency. Pricing also helps manage uncertainty by reflecting complexity with higher prices for more responsive or customized orders and lower costs for standard production. Among all levers, information is the most powerful. When buyers, manufacturers, and suppliers share accurate and timely demand data, it improves forecasting, coordination, and overall supply chain performance. In the end, Bangladeshi apparel manufacturers cannot reduce supply chain uncertainty alone. Strong collaboration across the supply chain, combined with effective use of key operational levers, is essential for improving stability, efficiency, and long-term performance. Eid al-Adha, the second Eid of the year, and its impact. Eid al-Adha is more than a religious festival in Bangladesh. Every year, it creates one of the country's largest seasonal economic cycles, supporting millions of livelihoods across the country. As Eid al-Adha approaches, cattle markets emerge across urban and rural areas. Transport networks become busier and businesses prepare for the festival season. What begins as a religious sacrifice generates economic activity across multiple sectors. However, the industry continues to face challenges, including preservation issues, rising costs, and changing global demand. To reduce spoilage and support the market, the government has increased official rawhide prices and expanded free salt distribution in recent years. The livestock sector sits at the heart of this cycle. Farmers spend months raising cattle for the market, and for many rural families, livestock sales become an important source of income. The benefits also reach traders, transport workers, and others connected to the supply chain. In recent years, online cattle marketplaces have also become increasingly common. The economic impact continues after the sacrifice. Millions of rawhides entered the supply chain, supplying a major share of the raw materials used by Bangladesh's leather industry, an important export sector for the country. Rawhides also carry social importance, providing an important source of funding for many madrasas and charitable institutions. At the same time, the festival creates seasonal employment as thousands of people become involved in cattle trading, transportation, meat processing, and leather collection. What makes Eid al-Adha unique is the connection between faith and commerce. From farmers in rural villages to workers in the leather industry, the festival supports millions of livelihoods and remains one of Bangladesh's most important economic periods. Why fashion keeps returning to striped. Striped shirts have endured because they adapt so easily. They work in casual and formal settings and can feel relaxed or sharp depending on how they are styled. After years of fashion focusing on plain basics and oversized shapes, stripes are making a quiet return. This time, they feel less corporate and more effortless. A pinstripe shirt can look professional and structured, but worn oversized with relaxed pieces, it takes on a completely different mood. Fashion trends move fast, yet striped shirts never seem to disappear. No matter how much style changes, they always find a way back. Not all stripes create the same effect. Thin pinstripes feel traditional, Bengal stripes sit in the middle, and wider stripes feel bolder. Vertical stripes create length, while horizontal stripes feel softer and more casual. Fit, fabric, and color shape the look as well. Relaxed fits feel especially relevant today. Crisp cotton keeps stripes sharp, while linen softens them. Strong contrasts stand out, while softer color combinations blend naturally into an outfit. Their appeal also comes from how easy they are to wear. They work with denim, chinos, tailored trousers, and even shorts. Worn over an open t-shirt, they feel relaxed. Under a blazer, they instantly look sharper. Straight lines also suggest order and intention, helping an outfit look considered without much effort. Maybe that is why striped shirts keep coming back. They sit comfortably between something too basic and something too bold. No big statement, just consistency.
Apparel news in brief for May 2026. Bangladesh exports rebound in April after 8-month decline. Bangladesh's exports bounced back strongly in April, ending 8 consecutive months of decline as demand improved in key markets. According to Export Promotion Bureau data, merchandise exports rose nearly 33% year-on-year to $4 billion in April. The recovery was driven by the ready-made garment sector, with apparel exports increasing 31.21% to $3.14 billion. Growth was recorded across all of Bangladesh's top 20 export destinations, including the United States, where exports rose 43.01%, and the United Kingdom, where shipments increased 23.46%. Despite the strong monthly performance, exports during July to April of fiscal year 2025-26 remained lower than the previous year. Industry leaders said the rebound mainly reflected payments for orders placed earlier in the year, while buyers continue to remain cautious amid global supply chain uncertainty. The April recovery signals improving demand in major markets, though exporters say longer-term growth will depend on greater stability in the global trading environment. EU apparel exports from Bangladesh dropped 19%. Bangladesh's apparel exports to the European Union fell sharply in the first 2 months of 2026, reflecting weaker demand and continued pricing pressure. According to Eurostat data, apparel exports to the EU declined 19.26% year-on-year to £2.8 billion during January and February 2026. Export volumes fell 11.14%, while the average export price per kilogram dropped 9.13%, highlighting ongoing pressure on unit prices. In February alone, export value, volume, and prices all recorded declines compared to the same month last year. Bangladesh's competitors also saw mixed results, with exports from China, Vietnam, and Turkey declining during the period. Overall, EU apparel imports fell 11.27% year-on-year to £13.83 billion, reflecting weaker demand across the market. The latest figures point to a challenging European market, with lower demand and falling prices continuing to affect apparel exporters. Bangladesh receives lowest t-shirt prices in EU market. Study finds Bangladesh supplies the most common t-shirts to the European Union, but a new study says it receives the lowest prices in return. According to a report by the Public Eye and the Clean Clothes Campaign, Bangladeshi-made cotton t-shirts are imported into the EU at an average price of $2.06 per piece, well below the EU average of $2.67. Researchers said major fashion brands continue to push suppliers to accept very low prices, often leaving factories with little or no profit. The report warned that low sourcing prices can affect wages, workplace safety, and overall sustainability, with some factories relying on cost-cutting measures and excessive overtime to stay operational. Industry leaders also acknowledged that Bangladeshi suppliers receive lower prices than competitors in countries such as Vietnam. BKMA President Mohammad Hatem said continued pricing pressure could eventually lead to delayed wages and factory closures. The study highlights the growing challenge facing Bangladesh's garment industry as factories struggle to balance competitiveness with financial stability and sustainability. Textile millers seek tax cuts as factories struggle. Bangladesh's textile sector is seeking government support as rising costs and financial pressures continue to weigh on factories. The Bangladesh Textile Mills Association has proposed reducing the income tax rate for textile mills from 27.5% to 10% until 2030. The association says the sector is facing higher gas and electricity costs, production disruptions, rising interest rates, and growing competition ahead of Bangladesh's LDC graduation. According to BTMA, more than 200 textile mills have already shut down, while many others are operating at only 60 to 70% capacity. Separately, BKMEA has requested a waiver of Taka 420 crore in bank loans for 50 struggling factories, arguing that weak international competitiveness and other operational challenges have left many businesses under severe financial stress. Industry groups say targeted support will be critical to helping struggling factories survive and remain competitive in the years ahead. H&M starts ending business ties with some garment suppliers in Bangladesh. several Bangladeshi garment factories are facing uncertainty after H&M began ending sourcing relationships with selected suppliers. Industry sources say more than half a dozen factories have been informed that the Swedish retailer will discontinue sourcing from them. One factory owner said his company had worked with H&M for over 20 years and depended heavily on its orders. He added that while H&M will still take deliveries for current and some upcoming orders, no explanation was given for ending the long-term partnership. Industry insiders say more factories may be affected as H&M diversifies its sourcing strategy away from Bangladesh. The move raises concerns for suppliers heavily reliant on long-term global brand relationships. EU to review Bangladesh FTA proposal. The European Union is preparing to review Bangladesh's proposal for a free trade agreement, a key step for future market access. The EU has informed Bangladesh that it will begin an internal assessment of the proposal submitted nearly a year ago. Bangladesh is seeking the agreement to secure preferential access after graduating from LDC status. At present, the EU is its largest export destination, but exporters may face around 10% tariffs graduation until 2029 while discussions continue on long-term trade options. The outcome of the review will be critical for Bangladesh's export competitiveness in Europe. Sri Lanka apparel exports decline despite diversification push. Sri Lanka's apparel exports continue to decline despite efforts to diversify into new markets. Apparel exports fell 4.72% year-on-year to $328.15 million in April. Shipments to the UK, EU, and US all declined, while exports to non-traditional markets rose 12.61%, showing some diversification gains. For January to April 2026, total apparel exports stood at $153 billion, down by 7.47% from last year. While new markets are growing, overall export performance remains under pressure. Apparel leaders to donate over 300,000 school dress sets under pilot program. Bangladesh's apparel sector is set to support a national education initiative through large-scale uniform donations. Industry leaders will donate more than 300,000 sets of school uniforms under a pilot program expected to begin by July. Each package includes a uniform set, a pair of shoes, and a jute bag for Class 1 students in selected government primary schools across Upazilas. BGMEA, BTMA, and the Bangladesh Government Buying House Association have pledged contributions with plans to expand the program to all government primary schools and later to madrasa students. Officials say the initiative will gradually scale up as part of a broader national program. New Zealand assures continued duty-free access for Bangladesh post-LDC graduation. Bangladesh has received reassurance from New Zealand on continued market access after LDC graduation. New Zealand has confirmed it will continue duty-free and preferential access for Bangladeshi goods even after graduation from LDC status. Bangladesh currently exports nearly $100 million annually to New Zealand, with garments making up about 90% of shipments. Exports stood at $78.93 million during July to April of the current fiscal year. The assurance strengthens confidence for exporters navigating post-LDC trade conditions. Textile Innovation Exchange, officially launched to accelerate innovation in Bangladesh's textile and apparel industry. A new platform has been launched in Dhaka to strengthen innovation in Bangladesh's textile and apparel sector. The Textile Innovation Exchange aims to make innovation measurable, evidence-led, and repeatable across the industry. It brings together factories, academia, researchers, technology providers, and global partners to strengthen collaboration. The launch even gathered policymakers and industry leaders, highlighting innovation as a key driver for future competitiveness in the sector. Organizers say the platform will help transform innovation into a core strength of the industry. Shaping the future of textile and apparel industry of India, role played specifically by the Make in India initiative. India's textile and apparel industry continues to grow strongly under the Make in India initiative. Launched in 2014, the initiative has expanded manufacturing, attracted investment, and improved infrastructure in the textile sector. India is now one of the world's largest cotton producers and the second largest textile manufacturer. The industry employs around 45 to 46 million people and generated exports of about $36 to $37 billion in 2024 to 25. Government programs like PM Mitra, PLI, and TUFS continue to support growth. However, the sector still faces challenges from competition, compliance requirements, cotton price volatility, and high logistics costs. The industry is projected to reach $350 billion with export targets of $100 billion by 2030. Make in India is positioning textiles as a major driver of India's future manufacturing and export growth.